Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Foundation Maps monthly webinar. My name is Jake Garcia. I'm the Vice President of Data and Technology Strategy at the Foundation Center. We're going to go over some things today. The topic today is what's new in Foundation Maps. There are a lot of new, exciting things that are in the platform right now, and there are a couple of things that are also coming up that we're pretty excited about. So we're going to go over a few things. One of them is that there's a lot more data in Foundation Maps now than there was just a few months ago, and this is actually going to be an ongoing trend. We've got some new systems in place, and we're pretty excited about it, and I'll describe it, and we'll do a demo of it and show you what some of that new data is and what it means to the platform, what it means to you guys. Next one is called auto search. Maybe that's not the right word for it, but basically there's kind of a cool thing that we're beta testing that's inside the application right now that has some kind of, it predicts the codes based on sentences and texts. I'll do a demo of that and maybe solicit feedback from you guys about what it does and how well it works. There's some new demographic layers inside Foundation Maps. I'll show some of those, and those are pretty interesting. And then I'll show some of the things that are coming soon, probably in May. So let's go right on to the demo. So this is Foundation Maps. If you've logged in before, you can recognize this. Orange bubbles shows the recipient locations across the world. We can see here that the total number of grants is 4.4 million, roughly. I was looking just at slides that I made just a few months ago, and in December, there were 3.8 million grants, which means that in the last couple of months, we have actually added over 600,000 grants to the platform. And to us, that's pretty exciting. What this really means is that we're going to be adding roughly 2 million grants per year. And basically, the idea is we're going to be adding all the grants from all U.S. foundations, plus a lot of grants from non-U.S. foundations. Basically, we automated the process for pulling in grants and giving them the codes based on the taxonomy in a more automated fashion. We still have people actually coding the grants, but we actually have some more computer kind of assisted processes that help us do this in bulk. So to kind of demonstrate this, let's look here at the the trend charts, and we can see here that actually the number of grants really jumped up for 2013, and then to even 2014, we already have 300 and something thousand grants for that particular year, 340,000 grants. And there's always a little bit of a time lag between current day and the data we've got from foundations. And that's because a lot of foundations who don't give us their data directly, the only way that we can get their data is from their IRS tax forms. So IRS, a foundation files their 990PF form, they send it to the IRS then processes it, and then eventually they send it to us. So there's always going to be a little bit of a time lag. But the good news is that we actually think that there are somewhere in the neighborhood, we normally code grants from the biggest foundations, and these are the biggest grants. However, now that we're automating our processes, we plan on coding all the grants from all U.S. foundations at minimum, which means somewhere around 1.5 to 2 million grants per year. So while this doesn't actually show a genuine trend that in 2013 more grants were made than in previous years, this shows we just have a lot more grants for those years. So look for this number, 2014. This number, right now it's at 340,000. This number is going to go up to close to 1 million in a matter of the next couple of months. So it's pretty exciting news for us. Hopefully it's exciting news for you guys. I know it's something that's been requested a lot from our customers is how do we get more of the grants from small foundations in rural America? How do we get the full picture of what's going on in these from smaller foundations or smaller towns, not from the likely suspects? We all know that Ford and Gates are huge. What about the other players in the world? So a lot of this new data is not just data that you would have gotten later, but it's a lot of data that might not have ever appeared in the platform if you were to look at it a year or two ago. So this is pretty good news for us. And one of the reasons that this total is larger than before is some of the automation that we've done. And I want to show you guys how you can kind of get access to this. So if you go into advanced search, and you go in, it says enter free text here. we probably need to make this a little more kind of glamorous than it is. But basically what this is going to do is you can put in a project description, and it's going to try to guess the subjects and the population groups and the types, support strategy, and the transaction type for that sentence. So let's say that I've gone in here, going into your selections, and I've got a nonprofit, and we want to build, we want to get funding, or maybe we're a foundation. We want to fund the building of a gym at a school in Texas. So let's just say I said that, to build a gym in Texas. I'm using a pretty simple example, but hopefully to demonstrate. Say update. It's going to go thinking, and it gets school athletics. I think that's a pretty good guess. Community recreation, sure. Building renovations, definitely. Cash grants, well, maybe it's not. So let's get rid of cash grants real quick. It's going to think about it for a second. Okay, 172 grants. Let's go look on the map and see what it does for that. Okay, looks like it's pretty evenly distributed. Let's go look at a sample grant and see. So now I'm going into the list view here. You can see the foundations, Moody Gardens, Kinder, etc. Look at who the top recipients are. Okay, Park Board, Buffalo Bayou, Texas Christian. Okay, I guess I didn't say whether it was a primary school or whether it was a college, but let's pretend that that wasn't a factor just yet. Let's go look at individual grants here. Let's look at this one. For the Park Board of Trustees, the City of Galveston, this looks like a pretty good candidate. Sure, it's for parks, for continuing support, building renovations, and parks is a subcategory of some of the other categories. So this looks like, okay, maybe it is. It probably counts because it was in the community recreation category. So maybe we say, you know what, I'm really doing this for a school. And we Texas Lamarck Independent School District, 2009, to build tennis court and track. You know what? This one pretty much fits the bill if you're just looking for other funders who do something similar, and you didn't have to learn that in the subject area there's a category called school athletics. Because one of the things we found is that the taxonomy, as wonderful as the taxonomy is, we don't want people to have to learn that there's like all these subcategories and actually what subcategories mean. Your other options, let's say we got rid of all this, let's say we got rid of that, and let's just say we did the word gym and just see what happens. Okay, we got 37 grants, and it's a slightly different set of grants, but it's just another way of getting at the data instead of using a keyword. Let's go back to advanced search. I want to try a couple more examples. The one I use all the time, but it works pretty well, is to dig wells in Kenya. So let's say I'm interested in digging wells in Kenya. Well, look at that. That's interesting. Clean water supply, definitely, that fits. Low income and poor people, nothing in here actually said anything about poor people. But if I'm a funder and I'm funding something to dig wells in Kenya, it's pretty likely that this population group actually is the target population group. Again, cash grants, maybe you get rid of that. Maybe it's not that big a deal. Let's try something else, though, that might help. 8 grants might not seem like very much, but this is recipients. Let's change this to area served. Maybe the recipients is actually not the factor that's the most important. It's actually, now the number is 69. Let's look at why that number has grown. So if we go here, let's look at these recipients of these grants. Again, this is recipients receiving grants that serve Kenya in support of clean water supply, in support of low income and poor people from 2006 to the present. And look at this. CARE USA is based in the United States. They have 8 grants that fit this profile. Some of them are a little bit older. Let's sort a little bit. 2012, let's go look at this grant. It's from Gates. To improve sustainability and effectiveness of school water, sanitation, and hygiene programs in Kenya. Clean water supply. So here's the grant. So basically, we found by just putting in a project description and then looking at the geographic area served, especially for projects outside the United States, that we can actually find the grants that actually might kind of meet your expectations. If you're trying to find other foundations who are funding similar work, this is a really easy way to do it without learning the taxonomy. Let's do one more. Again, you can do keyword search, but I think this is a better way of kind of finding the right grants that match. let's say that I'm interested in funding climate research. And we don't have a taxonomy category called climate research. However, we do have one called climate change. We do have a support strategy called research. And we do, again, we've got cash grants here. Let's take a look at what these grants are like. Actually, you know what we should do? Let's go look at the world map. Who is funding climate change and research around the world? We know there's 822 grants. It should load in just a second. Come on, computer, you can do it. Interesting. Okay, let's go look at India. I'm actually doing this one on the fly, so let's see what happens. Computer, you can do it. I believe in you. Okay, let me go to list view here real quick. We can see we've got Rockefeller Foundation. You can see a bunch of the recipients here. Climate Works. Let's click on them. You can see they've got a lot of Hewlett-Packard grants, 2013 from Grantham Foundation for the Protection of the Environment. This looks like a pretty good candidate. So here we go, climate change, and then here we go, research as a support strategy. So it's pretty cool. I think this is a really good way to get into foundation maps without having to learn all the different facets. So please, I would love it if you guys would try this out. Again, it might be a little hard to find, but try it. Go to advanced search when you log into foundation maps. Go to this your selections part and just type in a project description. You can even copy and paste an article in here. You could put in multiple sentences. You might get some crazy results, but at least it kind of gives you a head start. So if we find that people find this interesting and helpful, we can then kind of make this a little bit more visible, a little bit easier to get to, and maybe it's the way people start searching. We're just kind of beta testing this right now. We'd love to get your feedback. Next, I want to talk about new demographics. So let's go back to the map. Let's actually clear everything. And let's go to a place that is in the news right now, Flint, Michigan. So here we see recipients of grants in Flint, Michigan. Actually, I'm going to refresh. 1 second. Flint, Michigan. And we've got the demographics down here at the bottom. A lot of folks have said, where are the demographics? They are kind of buried down to the bottom right. There's another thing we actually want to get feedback on to see if people find them useful. So we've had a lot of these demographics already in the past. So let's look at the African American population. And we can see, if we look at Flint, and zoom out a little bit, where it's dark blue, and we pull up the legend here, you can see that where it's really dark blue, it's 71 to 100% African American. However, let's look at a few of the other layers. Let's look at Hispanic. Not predominantly Hispanic, not particularly Asian. Let's combine all the people of color, though. We can see it's kind of like the black population. But we have a few of these other layers that are kind of interesting. Veterans. We can see where it's darker blue. Now, the percentages aren't going to be very high because just nationwide, you're not going to find a place that's 100% populated with veterans. But comparatively speaking, when you get 12 to 13% of the population being veterans, that's actually pretty high. But we can see these other shades of blue, it's in the 10% range. So we have some outskirts here populated with veterans. Let's look at youth. The population of youth looks like the inner city might have a little bit more. Poverty. So the percentage of the people that live at or below the poverty line, you can actually see that in Flint, downtown Flint, let's zoom out even a little bit more, we can see that, it's concentrated poverty actually in this area. And then we can even then go look at immigrant and foreign-born. Let's look at, we can even just zoom out a little bit, and let's just say we wanted to go to Michigan, generally speaking, and then it'll pop us out, and we can see that. The bubbles might be a little distracting, but the idea is we'll give a little bit of context to the kind of topic that you're looking for. So let's say that we are looking at, we wanted to find out about health in Michigan, or let's even do Detroit. And now we've zoomed in here, and we can see here that actually the immigrant and foreign-born population is actually pretty predominant in downtown area, and less so as you go out. But let's also look at per capita income. And we can see here that per capita income is pretty strong outside of the city and very low per capita income inside the city. So it's a way of kind of getting at some of the information about what's actually happening with the population. Another fun thing to do that I think a lot of people aren't aware of is if you click on the little polygon symbol, with a little pentagon over there, you can actually draw a shape. And when you're done drawing that shape, you double click to finish. It should then go make a call, and it'll give you the aggregate statistics of the demographics of that area for the ones that we've got trended data on. So you can see here we've got 1990, 2000, 2010, and projected 2018. So we can actually see here that the population overall has really dipped in this area, and that it's continuing to decrease. And here we see the white and Hispanic population is actually pretty low, and that incomes actually have kind of flatlined and are predicted to go up a little bit, but it's kind of dipped. You can do this over and over again in different parts of the United States where we've got pretty granular data. So the demographics area, please try these out and see what you think. As far as the layers of demographics that we've chosen, there are tens of thousands of different possibilities for demographics, not only over time, but at different scales. Some of them we will have down to the census block group like we have here. Some are going to be at the county level. Some are going to be more or less detailed. Some of them we put on here because we had special requests from clients who said, I want to know about the proportion of the population that is immigrant and foreign-born. We've got a good one-year snapshot of that. We don't have a good trended snapshot, but for some purposes, that one-year snapshot was fine. But we could also figure out other things. I know a lot of other providers of this kind of data have it. You could find out the percentage of a block group that spend over $100 a week on groceries. You could do all kinds of things. But we actually want to find out from you guys which of the demographics are most important to you that might help you make funding decisions, might help you find the right partners, might help you figure out what parts are most in need. And then basically of the ones that we requested the most are the things that we'll add to the platform. Let's go on to stuff that's coming soon. This part we're working on furiously behind the scenes, and we're pretty excited about each of these. They're multi-subject with and or filters. I'll describe what that is. A multi-facet windrows. I'll also show what that is. And then, of course, the idea of more data. When we looked earlier at the examples of gymnasiums in Texas or climate research, what we noticed with that is that there was a primary subject. In this case, let's say that the topic was renewable energy. Well, that's great for making sure we've got the bases covered. But in reality, the grants that we've got in our database actually have more than one subject. They've got, in this particular case, this has social media, media development software, climate change, and civic participation. That's a lot of subjects. So what we're going to do soon, basically in May, is we want to make sure that users can do queries in the taxonomy or other kinds of queries that include these secondary subjects, so you're not limiting the data too much. In this case, let's say you looked up climate change, you want to make sure you get this particular grant in. And you can look at the description. For the Environmental Justice Program, Presente.org, the largest online Latino advocacy organization in the nation, we use cutting-edge online social media and new media tools and techniques to activate Latino support for clean energy and climate action, et cetera, et cetera. It kind of cuts off. The idea is this is a multifaceted grant. It's really not just renewable energy. It actually does involve all these other areas. So adding this additional subjects is actually going to be very powerful. And this, I was going to describe what the difference between and or is, and I figured maybe a graphic representation would be best. So let's say that I'm querying, and the normal way of querying, you say, okay, where a grant has renewable energy as a subject or social media, and when you do or, that's basically a union. It means, let's imagine that the bubble on the left was renewable energy grants and the bubble on the right was social media grants. When you say or, you're saying, yeah, a grant could have both, or it could have just renewable energy over here or just social media over here. Just give me the universe, and that's what or means. And in this case, for these two subjects, you get 5,434 grants, which is great. But maybe you're like, really, I want to know who's actually working on the actual combination of renewable energy and social media. And that's an and. You want to find the intersection. In this little sliver here, you want to find the grants that are both for renewable energy and social media. Only grants that have both of these will count. In this case, it narrows it down to two funders, and you've got William and Flora Hewlett Foundation and Global Green Grants Fund. To a lot of our users, they've said, we want to find these combinations. This is where the magic happens. You know, we don't want to have to hunt through 5,400 of these to find the magical combination. So what we're going to do, which will come out in May, is provide an option, not only have the secondary grants, secondary subjects, but also allow you to choose between, do you want to have the whole universe via or do you want to just find the intersection? And you can toggle between them and see what kind of results are the best. We are very excited about this. A lot of people have been asking for it for a long time, and we're very happy we're going to be able to deliver this soon. We call this next item, we call this the windrows. It's kind of what it's called in the world, but we don't call it that here. Usually what we do, if you go look at an individual foundation, I'm picking Kresge here, go to the subjects area, and you'll see the distribution of their funding by subjects. And right now it's, okay, so it looks like Kresge spends most of their grant dollars on community and economic development. Human services, health, education, and arts are also pretty popular. We could also look at nonprofits and look at their distribution of grants. So I can pretty much bet that the Cancer Institute is going to have a strong pedal of the windrows on health, which it does. This makes sense as a Cancer Institute. But one of the things that we've heard is like, well, what about if you said, hey, I'm looking at Flint, Michigan. Give me the windrows for all funders and recipients related to Flint, Michigan. This way you get a windrow that doesn't just show one institution, but actually shows the entire landscape of the parameters you've chosen. So this, when we roll out the multiple subjects and the and/or toggle, we're also going to allow this worldwide all-facet windrows, we'll call it something a little bit easier to say than that, available in the chart section of Foundation Maps. So this one will be pretty cool too. And to more data. As I was saying earlier, we are going to be publishing all the grants from all 90,000 U.S. foundations. We're processing them now. And basically we're going to be adding, previously we added 250 or 300,000 grants per year. We've already added 600,000 this year alone in the last couple of months. We're going to be adding 2 million total, 2 million plus this year and on an ongoing basis. So it's going to go from, let's look at this, let's clear all and look at the world again. It's going to go from, 4.4 million grants, by the end of the year there's going to be 6 million grants. So the number is going to go up pretty dramatically, and it's going to keep going up on a regular basis. This is great news for folks out in the field, and I think hopefully you guys will be as psyched as we are. At any time, you guys are using it, even if you're using the free trial or just thinking about it, email us at maps@foundationcenter.org, and you can get, and we'll respond to you about your query, whether you're a current user, a prospective user, or just curious or whatever. We get all kinds of questions, and we'd like to hear from you guys. When we hear from you guys, that's how we prioritize what features we're going to build next. The windrows, the and, or, et cetera. This is all in secondary subjects. This is all the result of people emailing us or calling us and asking us questions. So we really love to hear from you. At this point, should we open it up for questions?
Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, just please type them into the Q&A box since you are all muted, and we will address them in the order they come in. We'll give folks a couple minutes to type in their questions right now. Okay, so we had a question come in. When would you recommend Foundation Maps over Foundation Directory Online?
That's a good question. There are two different use cases for Foundation Directory Online versus Foundation Maps. it fundamentally has the same data. Foundation Directory Online has proven really useful for folks who are seeking grants. It allows you to do a lot of due diligence on foundations, look at the people who are working at each foundation, and then find out if they, take unsolicited grant proposals. There's a lot of detail in there that's really important for nonprofits, especially development professionals, people whose job it is all day long to seek grants. Foundation Maps was built as a visualization tool with the same data, but the idea was foundations typically were looking for a different kind of, they had different questions. One of the questions would be, I want to scan the landscape of funding for health in Ohio, or let's say education in Ohio. So if you did education here, and you did Ohio here, you'd pretty quickly get, okay, we've got 345,000 funders who are funding 2,000 recipients in Ohio. This is a really quick snapshot of what's going on for your subject and area of interest. And so that's what we really wanted to do. Foundations are curious about some big, high-level things, and that's when you'd use Foundation Maps. And then I'd even say, let's break this down to Toledo, let's say, Ohio. And then you wanted to find constellations. This is the other thing that Foundation Maps does that Foundation Directory does not have, is constellations, which actually shows you the relationships between foundations and nonprofits. Foundations often say to us, we're trying to find out who else we should be partnering with, and we think that having this quick aggregation and kind of network analysis actually helps you realize, yeah, you can find out who the biggest funders are, but who's most central to the network? And we can see here, LaValle, PNC, McMaster, et cetera, are pretty central to this network, and it's pretty interesting for that case. So I would say, the short version, Foundation Directory Online is really great for grant seekers, and Foundation Maps is better for landscapes, snapshots, relationship networks, and basically finding folks to collaborate with.
Great. The next question is, can we add more than one layer in demographics?
Right now we cannot. And one of the reasons, and I and actually a couple of us on the team actually went to graduate school for geography, and this is a kind of a classic cartography kind of question. It becomes really complicated visually when you add more than one demographic layer on top of the other. One of the reasons why we didn't do it, imagine that we did the black population versus a different population, and together you'd have to use, instead of color, you have to use gradients, because if you had one or two layers on top of each other, they'd all turn kind of brown at some point. So you could have one that's like horizontal and vertical lines, the other one's a color. We could make it three-dimensional, where a color ramp, light blue to dark blue, and color ramp for one demographic, and heights of bars or another. There's a couple of ways that could be done. But one of the solutions that we had for that is, if you can pick one or none, and you can draw a shape. And what that does is then that would then basically combine the layers and let you see the statistics for that particular layer. So we had a thing before called Philanthropy Insight. It's been so long, I forgot the name of it. And that actually let you do more than one demographic layer at the same time, but we found from customers that it was too visually confusing to look at, and so people stopped using it. So I would recommend drawing shapes to get these aggregate reports. I think that might actually help you get to the answers.
And the next question was if all of the additional grants are smaller grants that will be added to the platform in the next year.
Yes, I think that is going to be the case. There are some exceptions. I would say that the trend will be if we typically added 250,000 grants per year, now we're about to add 2 million grants per year, that the majority of those grants are going to be smaller. However, there are some cases, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find it here, where there were new grants that were added from foundations that weren't that large. Let me get them down here. And go to the list. Let me see if I can find it. There was one that was pretty interesting. Maybe it was 2015. I don't recall. Anyway, there are grants that are in here that were added relatively recently that were, maybe it was 2013. Let me just double check. I believe there's one of these grants was actually pretty large, and it was basically from the bulk processing from a foundation that wasn't normally on our radar, but because the grant was, so every once in a while you get a few large grants that will pop in. But I think across the board, the majority of the grants will be relatively small, and honestly, that's pretty good news. We really want it. We've always aspired to capture all the grants from all U.S. foundations, and basically the largest 1,000 foundations of the 90,000, the largest 1,000 foundations do over 50% of the total giving. It's kind of like the 1% of adults in the U.S. population. Top 1% have all the income. Well, the top 1% of foundations actually do the predominant amount of giving. You go to the next 99%, and then the giving per foundation just goes down from there.
Great. So if folks are already subscribers to Foundation Directory Online, will this still be an extra cost, or can they add it on to their FDO subscription?
As of right now, it's an extra cost, but we are exploring ways that we can combine them in some ways. Either make it less expensive to add on to your subscription, to add on Foundation Maps. I also think it would probably be useful. We've heard from a few folks that maybe you're looking at a profile at one place and you click on Open Society Institute and then you pop over and see the Foundation Maps. So we're exploring ways to be able to do that. I think that there is a very strong argument to be made that that we should be able to allow users to be able to use either one. So one of the questions would be, I guess, is if you are a Foundation Directory Online user already, our follow-up question would be, and we could talk offline about this, is what are the features of Foundation Maps that you like the most, that you would find useful in FDO? And then maybe we could actually just port over the features of Foundation Maps that you like the best and put them in there that way. We want to make sure our users get everything that they need, and I think we can find a way to add those or combine them. I think that's probably the right route we'll go.
And is it possible to access Foundation Maps at a Foundation Center location?
Absolutely. It's free. If you are in New York or if you are in, we have a bunch of Foundation Center locations. There's New York, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Cleveland, and San Francisco. But there's also what we call the Foundation Information Networks. And I can't remember exactly, well, look at that. Google works again. If you look up foundationcenter.org/fin, I'm not sure why this page is loading so long, but you can actually go to a map, and basically what these are, a lot of these are, Foundation Information Networks are mostly public libraries, but there are places around the country where you can find a public library that actually has basically a workstation where you can get access to Foundation Directory Online and Foundation Maps for free. And let's say that I was in Charlotte, right? We can go here, and we can see that there's a fin that's in Charlotte, and I believe you can see below here, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library. You get information about where they are. They're in Charlotte, North Carolina. Here's their URL, and then you can go there and actually get access to all this stuff for free.
Great. And is there a way to see demographics across all U.S. states?
Yeah. So if we go back to the map, let's pick the United States, just simplicity. There's all the big bubbles of the world. And let's go and look at per capita income. So we look at per capita income. I'm not sure why it's not highlighted, but it's showing per capita income here. We can actually see, relatively speaking, where it's dark blue is in New York, where it's lighter blue is in, down in some of these other southern states. And you could actually even draw a shape around entire swaths of the country. So let's say I want to get all of the, I don't know, this is a strange area. it's sort of like the East Coast or whatever. It just quickly ran the numbers for that entire region that we just drew. So it actually sliced and diced all that data pretty quickly. In the back end, you can see here that across that area, the median household income, per capita income is around 40,000, and that there's projected data here. The people of color number is actually rising, and that whole area basically has 167 million people projected to go up to 176 million people. So, yep, you can see nationwide statistics and draw really big shapes if you'd like to.
Great. And do you have any use cases for how folks are using the Constellations feature?
Yes. One of the cases that I like to show that's pretty fun. Let me just clear all this and trash that thing. One of the cases that I like is, let's say we go back to Detroit, and someone says, or actually, let's go to Ghana. Let's say we went to Ghana, and let's say that we get rid of this notation, and let's say we did water access, sanitation, and hygiene, and let's do geo area served. So this kind of comes up every once in a while when people say, hey, I'm looking at, I want to do water access, sanitation, and hygiene. I'm thinking about going to Ghana. Who are the biggest funders? And, it's Gates and Hilton and Buffett and Coca-Cola, et cetera. And who are the recipients? You can get all that information, which is fine. You can see the top funders, but you want to see what their relationships are. And so you can actually go here and try this. And then you can actually see here we've got the Gates Foundation over here. And we've got over here Hilton, right? So this is the same kind of list we saw before. But we also have these kind of disconnected networks. Here's the Koch Foundation. And they've got these nonprofits, Diocese, St. Anthony's Catholic Church, et cetera, that are not really connected to this network, and they're not necessarily the largest funder. You can see that the big bubbles like Gates and Hilton are large here, but Koch is over here. This shows that there's potential for actually kind of creating a bigger network. Another case, you could choose, another one that I like to show that actually shows, let's get rid of water and let's do performing arts. Kind of a case study in the opposite, where it's a really dense network. All these foundations and nonprofits are really pretty tight together. But look at this one. Sphinx organization has all these foundations who are only giving to Sphinx in Detroit for performing arts, but are not giving to these other nonprofits. However, these foundations in the middle are giving to all the major ones. So this is a pretty interesting looking network. And if you're thinking about breaking into the performing arts funding scene, these guys in the middle, who are the most connected, would be the ones you'd want to talk to first. Or conversely, if you are a nonprofit working on this, you'd say, hey, you're only giving money to Sphinx. What about us? That's another way you could look at it. But we find that when foundations kind of get this first look at it, they find it to be really interesting, and then they do a deeper dive. Another example happened recently. I was in Newark talking to a foundation, and this foundation was interested in the arts in Newark. And so they looked at this one and they said, wow, look at all these funders that give to the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. Tons of funders. Look at this one. Here's a funder that gives lots of nonprofits, lots of individual nonprofits. And this shows that there's a lot of interesting kind of overlap between these players, and then you can kind of start to piece it out a little bit. So funders usually find it as a good kind of starting point about not only who the largest funders are, but who the big players are in any given region or subject.
And can you explain the all-facet windrows in more detail? What facets can you look up, and can you drill down into the grants or see it change across time?
Yeah, I think that when we do the all-facet windrows, let's pick an example here. Let's look Prudential. See what they've got going on. Right now, this is just the subject windrows, so we're going to allow it to do our population groups, and we're going to, I think, do support strategies as well. Right now, what you can do is when you click on a bar, it'll actually will drill down to the next level in the taxonomy. So here you can see under education, they give more money toward elementary and secondary education than they do for educational management or educational services. Let's click on elementary and secondary and then get a little deeper. And we can see that actually, they actually give proportionally more money to charter school education than to secondary education. And at any time you can get the details on this. But kind of another unknown feature that's kind of cool is you can actually kind of push the play button on this and see of the data we've got. It's going to kind of tick over time. You can see how their funding has changed a little bit. So here, science kind of popped in and popped out. Education is staying pretty steady. Oh, philanthropy came in and reduced. Public affairs and popped in. So you can see a little bit over time, just a little bit of the information about kind of how their priorities have changed over time. And that's how the big windrows will work when we have it in the chart section. You can go to Flint, Michigan, and just see overall how has this windrows changed. So it'll be pretty cool.
And you explained that Foundation Map shows only primary subjects now, but you'll be showing all relevant subjects for each grant soon. Does that mean there will be double counting? If I don't want to see the double counted numbers, can I still do that?
Yeah, we can. A question comes up a lot. Foundations, when they look at a number like this, water access, and this is a weird combination. I don't know who would look at WASH and performing arts in Newark. Let's limit that to just performing arts. But let's say we got 874 grants. Or maybe it actually is a good case. Let's do that, and let's do education. As of right now, this is only looking at primary subjects. It's 3,900 grants. There's no double counting if we were to look at the charts, for instance. If we look at the charts, we can see that, performing arts is way less funded than, education. And there's no double counting here. This is really a kind of this number will never be double counted. But these numbers in the bar charts, let's go look at bar charts. These right now are not double counted. There are 3,000 grants and there's 874 grants for performing arts. These are not double counted right now. So the total really is 3,900 grants. When we do secondary subjects, we're going to allow double counting to happen, meaning that you could have a grant that's for performing arts and education, which is very likely. Therefore, the bars would end up having some grants would actually show up in both bars. However, we're going to allow an option that says primary subject only that would allow you to kind of dedupe it and make sure that each grant only gets counted once when you're looking at a bar or trend chart, and it will pick the primary subjects and exclude the secondary subjects. So that's a good way if you're doing a research study and you really want to make sure you deduplicate grants, that choosing primary subject only is the way you would do that.
Is there a way to pull constellations or windroses into presentations?
Sure. So let's go back to performing arts, which is a good case. Let's go to constellations. So we're looking at constellations here. We're like, man, this is cool. This shows, this proves the point I've always been saying, someone might say. Then you go up here on the upper right, there's a PDF button. Click PDF, and it's going to generate a PDF of this. And I'm opening up that PDF now. And here's this foundation map. It shows the parameters that you've chosen. It shows you the windrows. And then you can take this and you can put it into a presentation. So you can do that from any of the views, actually, in Foundation Maps. There's a PDF button in the upper right corner of the map as well. So let's say we went here. It's going to load up. Whoa. I don't know why it went to that deep in New Jersey. But then you could basically do the same exact thing from the map. And you could actually print a PDF here, and then you'd have a nice little map, which also might help your argument or your presentation.
Perfect. And can you just talk a little bit more about how you're bulk processing and auto-coding grants data?
Sure. When we get a bit of grant text, I'm going to show you guys something kind of behind the scenes a little bit. Let me show you guys what it's like. Just 1 second. A lot of things go into the grant, basically bulk processing of data. We'll get a piece of data in that says, we'll get a question in that says, a grant that comes in that says, this grant was to the University of Colorado, and it was to fund a biology lab for a scholarship program. And they, let's just say, and then maybe it says University of Colorado somewhere in there. Well, what we actually have to do is actually figure out not only who the recipient was. Now, this is a pretty clean one. University of Colorado is very clean. We can actually figure that one out pretty easily. But what we actually need to do is validate, well, is it really the University of Colorado, or is it the one in Boulder, or is it one of the branches? I'm sure they exist. So deduping that is really important. And then I don't know if this is true for their Denver location. I don't know. What we have to do is actually, in bulk, be able to go through these without having to read every one of them and get that this is actually the geographic area served is Denver. Population group is academics. That makes sense. That the support strategy scholarships, which is true, said in scholarship program. And that is for university education and for biology. Metric grants, we'd say maybe not. So what we'd end up doing is looking at the grants, trying to get them coded quickly, and then reviewing the ones that might have either gotten multiple transactions or multiple subjects, or figure out a way to review what the machine has predicted. Basically what ended up happening is we took 10 years worth of data that our staff members had coded into different ways, and what it ended up doing is taking all those words and all the codes and figuring out a way that if you gave it new words, that it would actually code them into these different facets. So again, this is a behind-the-scenes view of how it works, but even behind this, there's a lot more math and statistics going on that helps with this. But the idea is that, when you're using your email and a lot of stuff automatically gets put into your spam or junk folder, what your email application is doing is it's taking the text in there and making an evaluation based on that text. Is it spam or is it not spam? Now, sometimes it makes a mistake. Sometimes it puts your best friend's email address into your spam folder, and you're really bummed, right? There's going to be a couple of errors like that pop through. Other times, you'll be looking in your inbox, and something that's definitely spam will get into your inbox. That's bad. So those are the two different types of errors that you can get. In our case, we're taking text, and we're trying to classify it into 900 different subjects, 40 different strategies, 50 or 60 different population groups, and the geographic area served. So we're going to miss some. We're going to predict some incorrectly every once in a while, but basically this is a way that we can start to get at the real volume of data that's out there. And in fact, we're now applying the same methodology to our news articles and to reports so that we can improve search across the Foundation Center. So it goes beyond just the grant descriptions, but it is a really good way to be able to quickly make sense of data, and then figuring out how to minimize those errors is basically what our task is now. Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining. Again, email us at maps@foundationcenter.org, and we'd love to hear from you. And if you can kick the tires on the auto search and the demographics, and then let us know what you thought, we'd love to hear from you. Great, thanks a lot.